You're listening to the My Hair Ain't Nappy podcast, where I'll be giving valuable insights and thought provoking perspectives about the connections between our hair and how we live our daily lives. I know that many of you have heard people talking about jerry curls and pressing curls, high top fades and sporting waves, the best products for your hair, and so much more. But what you haven't heard is how our hair can be a full reflection of what's going on in our hearts, what's going on in our minds, what's going on in our bodies, and what's going on in our souls. I'm your host, Darius Peace, and I'm excited to be your weekly guide on the journey to having better hair and a better life. Sometimes when I come into the studio to record, it's after I've left a session with my therapist. And it's really awkward sometimes because I'm so emotionally charged that I'm like, okay, let me pull it together before I get on this mic. And sometimes I'm able to, and sometimes I'm not. Today I am able to pull it together. I love that I'm in therapy. I don't have any shame about being in therapy. I remember when I was growing up, so many people would often make therapy very taboo and very, if you go to therapy, you must be crazy. Something must be wrong with you. Well, something is wrong with me, and I'm trying to make it right. So that's why I go to therapy. I love it. This has been a very challenging year thus far, although my wins have far outweighed my losses, but my losses have been heavy. And so heavy that they've opened Pandora's box, and things that I've not faced or run away from are now popping up, and I'm having to deal with them. No more running. And so I'm really glad to be in therapy, but sometimes when I come in here I'm emotionally charged and triggered by a lot of things, but I'm just so grateful that I do have the mindset to prioritize therapy so that I can get better, which is the whole premise of the My Hair Ain't Nappy podcast, for us to experience better hair and better lives in this journey together. Today is it's Sunday. It's Mother's Day. And I love Mother's Day. At one point in time I used to be kind of disgruntled about Mother's Day because I always felt obligated to gift things on Mother's Day, and it would be stressful for me. So I kind of dropped it for a little while because I felt too stressed about it. But it's different now. Mother's Day hits very different. Of course, my career began with my mama. And I know a lot of my stories involving my mama and my hair seem to be real traumatic, but it's my experiences, and it's my experiences really that involve her that introduced me, gave me a truly solid introduction into the world of hair. My mama used to take us to church with her on Sundays, and I know I seem to be pausing because whenever I unlock the chambers of my memory bank and go back and meet with my past that I've been running from for so long, hence why I'm in therapy. It appears to be so my past appears to be so complex but so normal at the same time. And I say complex because it's so very different from the life that I've chosen and somewhat cultivated now, but very very complex but normal. And I think a lot of people could identify with that on some level. I was a little boy who would go to church by himself. There was a church right across the street from our house, and once we moved when my mom and dad separated, we moved in with my grandmama. And the church that our church home, our family church home, was right across the street. So I would oftentimes walk to church by myself, whether anybody wanted to go or not. And my mama would always allow me to do so because, of course, the church was a safe place. And it was a safe place for me. Fortunately, I never had any bad experiences in any church that I've ever been a part of. But I would go there on Sundays by myself. But on the days that my mama would take us to church with her, well, there were times where I had to go with her because my grandmama would typically be there on Sundays. But if she was not there, then I had to go to church with my mama because I couldn't come home and be by myself. So my mama would take us to church in the projects. It was a church she went to in the projects, and it's not the church that she went to was not a church building in the projects. It was actually a church gathering that met in one of the apartments in the projects. And it was always a group of anywhere between 6 to 12 women, all single to my knowledge, all black. And when I say single, I'm not talking about, I mean single meaning not married. They all had significant others, but maybe a few of them may have been married, but I recall them being single. So, but in hindsight, the church services were very intimate and intense, very Pentecostal in style. So it was, it could get loud and there could be a lot of shouting at some point. Somebody could easily go into a shouting fit. I remember there was one lady who used to go to the church and she had what I now know was a keloid on her ear. But my brothers and I would always be like, why the hell she got a titty on her ear? And it's like, it was so big. And whenever she would get into a shouting fit, that titty would let loose and it would just shake. And my brothers and I'd be like, oh, there go that titty going. And so so just my mama had three boys and I don't know whether my sister was born at this time. No, my sister was born at this time. So she had three boys and a baby girl and we were boys. We were mischievous and we would always clown and as we called it jank each other all the time. But anyway, the cool thing about this church gathering setting was that it created a safe space for the women, a place of refuge for them to really deal with their dramas and traumas, and it was a really cool space. It reminds me of what now people participate in as small groups. Now, a lot of the mega churches, because they've gotten so big and there's a need for more intimate connection and relationships, they've diversified into having small group sessions. And so this was what very similar to what a small group would be like. And it was a really beautiful thing now that I'm looking back at it, but it created a really gorgeous sense of community amongst the women. And I say gorgeous because they were close, they were tight, they were friends, and they really relied on each other and supported each other in ways that I had not experienced before us going here. And what's so extraordinary about this particular church gathering was what happened after church. So after every session, every Sunday that I would go to this church with my mama, the women would do each other's hair. And that was something that really stood out to me. And it was kind of a normal thing because I was like, okay, I guess this is what women do when they get together after church. They do each other's hair. And when I say do each other's hair, I mean they did each other's hair. They would set up these lazy daisy hair dryers stacked on the yellow pages. Back in the day, the phone numbers there was no cell phones like that. So everybody looked in the phone book for everything. But the phone books were really thick and big. And so they would stack like 3 yellow pages to hold up the lazy daisy hair dryers so that they could fit under them. And there were folding chairs. I mean, they just made do with what they had. They would have folding TV tables as their stations to hold boxes of relaxer and tubs of Vaseline to be able to base their scalps. They would have hair gel for doing finger waves and scrunch styles. They would roll wefted extension hair to create these beautiful, somewhat ornate microwave ponytails, and that they were really microwave ponytails because they would set the hair on rods, put setting lotion, commonly Lotta Body setting lotion, on the hair, and they would put it in the microwave and let it set for a few minutes and take it out, let it dry a little bit. Take those rods out, pick them apart, and it would create the most beautiful curly ponytails that you can imagine. And they were called microwave ponytails and very popular at that time. It was in this setting that I was introduced to the wrap. That's a common way that black women, they usually wrap their hair at night when they wear their hair straight, and when they take it down or comb it down, it frames the face and hugs the face in a really beautiful way. But back in the day, people would set their hair and sit under the dryer for hours at a time in order to achieve that look. So that's where I was introduced to that. So my foundation for seeing hairstyles and knowing what hairstyles were in this setting right here. So when I talk about the complexity of my childhood, that's a very complex thing to try to describe because it was so normal for me, but in hindsight, that's nothing that I see or experience as a professional hairstylist. And it's so interesting because the quality of work that would come out of these church settings was top notch. Like these women would walk out of there with these gorgeous professional looking hairstyles done by non-professionals. It was just really interesting, but I wouldn't trade that memory for the world. I This is my first time in my entire life talking about this because I was ashamed of this. I shut this out. I put this in my memory bank chambers, as I mentioned earlier, and I never talked about this with anyone. And so I'm sharing this with you. Unlocking, I guess, Pandora's box of the memories of Mr. Peace and sharing it with you. I learned the smell of burning hair and grease from my maternal grandmama. She would sit at the kitchen table with her pressing comb and she would fry that hair perfectly straight and later roll it to frame her beautiful bronzed aged skin. She didn't call it pressing hair. She would always call it warm combing. I'm warm combing my hair, which warm combing is warm combing for those who may not have a proficiency in Southern Afro vernacular. She would call it warm combing her hair, and she always had a nice head of hair. She always called it she had soft hair or soft hair. She was born in 1926. That was shortly after the Great Depression, and she grew up in a time where complexion and hair texture for black people was a huge status indicator, especially in the South. She was the first person that I ever heard mention the term good hair. I never heard anybody say anything about good hair until I heard her say anything about good hair. And good hair for her was hair that was loose and hair that was curly and hair that did not look African. Um, that's so interesting. That did not look African. And she was very anti-relaxer. That women in that age range, because they warm combed their hair, they were really anti-relaxer. They knew that chemical couldn't be good for the hair. I don't ever recall her having a relaxer. No, she did give into getting a relaxer done one time. I remember our neighbor, our next door neighbor Vera, came and gave her a relaxer one time. And of course, everything that my grandma thought would happen with her hair did happen with her hair. It fell out. But it grew back, shortly after that because she wasn't continuing to apply the chemical. And I don't know whether it was the actual relaxer that took her hair out or whether her having the neighbor who was a non-hair care professional to apply the relaxer. And we're talking about a virgin relaxer. So she pulling it through, leaving it in for a long time. So clearly her hair became over processed and broke off for that. I don't think that it was the actual relaxer that just took her hair out. I think that it was the way it was applied. So. But I've never known, prior to that, I never knew her to experience any hair loss or breakage or anything like that. I never really thought much about it, but my grandmama was really an advocate for natural hair all of my life now that I think about it. She was very anti-relaxer and would always tell my mama how she didn't need a relaxer. My mom never put a relaxer in my sister's hair, but my sister had what my grandma called good hair. So she never quote unquote needed a relaxer. So it's just so interesting my history with hair, and because I'm now opening the chambers of my memory bank, I'm able to recognize how big of an influence the mothers in my life have had on my hair journey. It was it was a kind of clouded and historic showcase of beliefs that my grandma had regarding Afro textured hair. But I know that it was all the time that she grew up in because again, status was what your hair texture could gift you. Being able to be in certain circles and be able to attract a certain type of husband because of your looks. So anyway, if you had what she perceived as nappy hair, then you were not going to be treated the same way that someone who had good hair. And that was something that I learned from her. My paternal grandmama, She was so beautiful. Both my grandmas were beautiful, but this grandma, because she was so much younger than my grandma, she had a different kind of beauty to me. She had long, thick, flowing black hair that cascaded down her back, and you couldn't tell her nothing, y'all. Like she was proud of her hair. She knew she was a baddie, and she knew that her hair is what contributed to her being a baddie. She always seemed so glamorous to me because of the confidence that she carried because of her beautiful head of hair and her mocha brown skin. She was slim and statuesque, kind of like Diana Ross to me. She reminded me of Diana Ross in a lot of ways. And she did wear a relaxer in her hair. She always prided herself of wearing cream of nature because that's the relaxer that wouldn't take your hair out, according to her. And yeah, she wore a relaxer most of her life. I think she stopped relaxing her hair when I became a professional hairstylist, and I let her know that she didn't have to do it, and she stopped, and her hair still grew beautifully, and she she believed in me. She really believed in me as a hairstylist. My Grandma Betty is who she was. That's my Grandma Betty. She saw my commitment to being a hairstylist, and she saw my longevity and consistency in the industry develop and grow over the years. She always told me how proud she was of me to witness me blossom into a family man, and as a showcase of her love, she invested the initial seed money that I needed to start the Higher Beauty brand. It's so funny because my wife and I spent years going to different conferences. We would go to Black Enterprise Conference, Power Networkers Conference. We went to so many different conferences, and we would always enter these pitch competitions so that we could win the kind of seed money that we needed to be able to expand and grow our business. And we did that so much, and we would win, pitch competitions, but it was the seed money that my grandma invested in us that helped us to launch Higher Beauty. And I keep talking about these matriarchs in my life because I'm sitting here podcasting to you because of their contribution to how I am as your natural hair expert. I didn't get here on my own. And because it's Sunday, Mother's Day, I want to be able to talk about the mamas that influenced my life and my love for women, because I really love women. And I'm not talking about loving women in a sexual way, even though I love women sexually, but I'm talking about, well, I love a woman sexually, to be clear. We got to clear all that shit up because but I do love women and I honor women, and I was taught to love and honor women and respect women and really have a strong sense of deference for women. Um, so my grandmama she was a very big part of us starting High Beauty, and I'm so grateful for her with that. My godmama, she helped me to start my professional career as a legit licensed hairstylist. She let me live with her while I was getting on my feet as a hairstylist. She purchased my first set of Marcel irons that I still use to this day. She allowed me to start and operate my very first business. It was called Hairpiece. My very first business as a professional hairstylist in her wellness clinic. She had a wellness clinic, and it was very holistic in nature, and it was very fitting, especially because I was a natural hair pro. So working in a holistic studio was fantastic. And I remember my godmama gave me some of the best advice to start my career, and I still use this advice to this day. She told me that if I show up for my clients on time, always show up on time, do great work, and get them in and out, that I would have clients for life. And when I say I have found no lie there to this day, I have not. I followed that. I made it a mantra for myself. And when I'm training and teaching other hairstylists, I share that same thing with them because it really has had a very strong impact on my career as a hairstylist, and it's really led to a lot of success for me. So I love that. That's been the best and most practical advice that I've ever received in my entire hair career, and I'm so grateful for that. My wife, that's the main mama in my life. I believe that the marital relationship, and I know I say y'all. I am growing in this, and this is a journey. And I know that my wonderful producer Eric and I, we when we did a soft launch listening event to push off or propel the My Harry Nappy podcast, some of the feedback mentioned that I use a lot, and that's not really good for public speaking. And one of my close friends is a public speaking professor over at Sanford University here, Dr. Naya Pickett Miller, and she was telling me that there's not much wrong, there's nothing wrong with my especially for what I'm doing, because I'm getting the point across, and my in this case are a filler because what I'm feeding is fresh information. I didn't have time to think this through fully because it's fresh. So I'm just making sure I'm giving fresh food. And as I do this more, the alms will, they'll decrease. But right now I'm using alms. But I believe that the marital relationship can be one of the most all encompassing bonds that this life can offer. That's been the case for me anyway. My wife, of all the women that I've ever encountered, is the most influential woman of my experience with my hair as well as my overall life. I often tell people that everything good that you see in my life is touched by her, and everything that she touches, and I'm talking about Megan Peace, everything that Megan Peace touches turns into gold. One of the beauties of having your husband be a hairstylist is that you'll get to experience more hairstyles than most women. We've done so many different styles on my wife, y'all. We've done braids, we've done relaxers, weaves, afros, curly styles, coil styles, twist styles, ponytails. We've done all the colors and all the cuts. I mean, you name it, we have tried it. My gosh, I love her so much. I love my wife so much. Um, my entire professional career has been fueled by my wife. She's been here from the very beginning. We met while I was in my beauty school program, and so she's witnessed every part of my professional growth from student to expert. And so I love that we have that kind of longevity together. We've pretty much grown up together as adults to me. I mean, from the day I met her, I would go as far as saying that my life started to get better, and it still gets better every single day. Sometimes I think to myself, I think that she is God to me. And she's God to me. And I know a lot of y'all probably sit up there frowning like, wait a minute, that's too far. Like, what you mean she's God to you? But she is God to me, and that's my truth. And goddamn it, it's my podcast. I can say what the fuck I want to say. She is God to me. I remember, it's so funny, but whenever my mama and my grandma would get into it, because we grew up living with my grandma, and sometimes her and my mom would get into it, and she would always say, "This is my goddamn house. This is my goddamn house." I'm like, okay, it's your house, but this is my goddamn podcast, and I can say what I want to say. And so but she is. And when I say that, what I mean by that is I grew up learning and believing that God is love, and that we were created in the image and likeness of God. And so, the greatest human showcase of love that I've ever experienced in this life is with my wife. So for me, she is God. Nobody loves me like she does, and I don't love nobody like I love her. Nobody loves me more than she loves me, and I don't love nobody more than I love her. So when I say she is God to me, that's what I mean by that, and I live by that. I hold it, I own it, I love it. That's who she is. We've got so many hair stories. One of the funniest hair stories that I can recall with me and Megan, we studied abroad in Costa Rica years ago, and when we left to go on the trip, she had this beautiful micro braided afro that I did. And when I say y'all, it was everything. It was so beautiful. It was this gorgeous showcase of braids that, and I'm not talking about like a loose afro. It was a tight Angela Davis style afro that just clouded and crowned her head in such a beautiful way. And the color was fantastic because it ombre from this natural black, and going into some beautiful browns and really evolving into this beautiful showcase of platinum. and it was just really beautiful. So she wore that, and she would be able to do different things with it, wear it down, wear it in a ponytail, all these gorgeous things. It was just beautiful. So that's how we left to go to Costa Rica, and we were there for a while. And at some point in the trip, she was over it. She did not want to have those braids anymore, and so because she had braids, we didn't travel with any combs or brushes or irons or tools or anything like that. So, and our Spanish was very minimal at the time. That was the whole reason that we decided to study abroad, so that we could mejorar or improve our Spanish ability to speak Spanish fluently. So anyway, we went to a store while we were there, and we were like, okay, we got to find a comb, we got to find a brush, and we did find a blow dryer. Need to find a blow dryer. So we got in there. Megan decided to go to the right side of the store, and I decided to go to the left side of the store to find the hair supplies. And again, because our Spanish was so limited, we didn't want to have to bother anybody and have to deal with everything that came along with that, like listening to them and not understanding what they were saying and so forth. So anyway, I was on my side, Megan was on her side, and so she got frustrated and decided, you know what, I'm just going to have to go in and wing it and go and talk to this store clerk and find out where the combs are. So she went to the front desk, and there were three guys up there, and it was so funny. She was like, "Permiso, tiene pene?" And so the guys were looking at her like, "What?" And so she was like, "Permiso, tienes pene?" And so the thing that's funny about that, if you speak Spanish, you'll understand exactly what I'm saying. But the word comb in Spanish is peina, which is spelled P-E-I-N-A, peina. The word pene, P-E-N-A, is dick in Spanish. So my wife is up there asking these two guys, tienes pene, which is in English translating as, do y'all have dick? And so... So it was so funny. So they're looking at her like so crazily, but because it was a beauty supply store and they understood or just kind of recognized that she was not a native Spanish speaker, that she was American, they realized, okay, she's talking about comb. She is not talking about dick, because clearly we got the dick. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we don't want the dick. We just want a comb. Can we get the comb, please? And so there are times when my wife will sit back and remember that and laugh so hard about that, because it was so funny. I mean, every time I think about that, I'm like, my gosh, I'm glad that they didn't move forward with that. So my gosh, we've done so much together. We've traveled the world. We've built businesses. We've started a family, navigated through the highs and the lows of life. This year we'll be honoring 20 years of marriage. 20 years of marriage. That's a long time for us. And we're going to call it 20 years of peace, because the Peace family started with us nearly 20 years ago. 20 years ago. I guess grow would be appropriate or accurate. My hair is growing. I haven't let my hair get this long in a while, and I'm growing. I'm still growing, y'all. I'm learning to be better for myself and better for everyone around me. Learning to love better. I'm learning to recover better. I'm learning to communicate better. I'm learning to listen better. I'm learning to do a lot of things, but I'm going to talk about this more following a word from our sponsor. We'll be back.
Visit hayabeauty.com. That's HAYAH beauty.com, or give us a call 205-703-8022 for questions, for information, or to book your appointment.
Beauty can take you higher. The mission is to inspire. I am, I was, and I always will be. Beauty higher. Beauty can take you higher. The mission is to inspire. And I always choose to start my day with higher, higher beauty.
And we are back. I started this podcast talking about the 5 matriarchs in my life that have gifted me the most impact on my hair and my life's journey. And that's not, I know there are so many other women who play a role, but I'm just specifically talking about these 5 because they've had the greatest impact on my journey. It's Mother's Day, and I want to I learned a long time ago that if we think we don't have anything to give, one thing that we all have to give and always have to give is gratitude. As long as we have breath in our bodies, and even if we don't have it, we had it at some point, but we've got gratitude. And the thing that's beautiful about gratitude is that the more gratitude you express, it really does, it keeps growing and it keeps expanding, and you just keep recognizing and acknowledging all these reasons to be grateful. That's why a lot of people say that gratitude is the remedy for depression, because you are, as some people say, you'll count your blessings, and that's what gratitude is, just counting your blessings and acknowledging your blessings. So I'm big on gratitude, big on gratitude. I'm grateful for my mama. I'm grateful for my mama because there is no me without my mama. I'm grateful for her. If my mama's listening to this, or if you listening to this, mama, I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for my grandmamas, both of them, because there's no me without them. There's no higher beauty without them. I'm grateful for my grandmamas. Both my grandmamas are gone. My grandma Betty, the fabulous one, she she died this year, and so that's when I talk about like a lot of the things that are. There's been a very challenging year. I didn't know that my grandmama's passing was gonna open my soul in the way that it has, and really is stretching me in ways that I didn't think that it would stretch me. And so this is a very very, I don't know what the, I don't want to say fragile, but I'm in a I'm in a very vulnerable place right now, because I'm like an open wound, and I'm just applying salve, just spiritual salve and emotional salve, to really create a healing for myself. So that's what going to therapy is about, and that's what, being vulnerable on this podcast is about. It's a salve so that I can stretch and be comfortable with the stretch and grow and be able to float, as I always say. So I'm grateful for my grandmamas. They left a beautiful legacy for me. I'm grateful for my godmama. If you listen to this, I am so grateful for you, Mama Byrne. I'm grateful for my godmama because she chose to embrace me as one of her own, and she does it every single day. So I'm so grateful that I have her, and I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for my wife because I know what true life sacrifice looks like because of her. And I know you listen to this, so I'm grateful for you because you show me every single day what true life and love sacrifice looks like. All of my life's most valuable lessons have been learned from my wife. All of them. The most valuable lesson of them all is that lesson of love. So I'm grateful for my wife for journeying with me through love and through life. I'm grateful for my wife for allowing 5 of our most beautiful miracles to pass through her body, to sit there for a while and pass on through. I'm grateful for my wife for she always adds color and sparkle into our world. She's so celebratory and so festive, and I love that. I'm grateful for my wife for being my everything, like really my lover, my friend, my mother, my sister, my business partner, my life partner, my wife partner. So it's cool. At the beginning of this podcast, I talked about how the marital relationship is one that is all encompassing. And so when I say my wife is my everything, that's the all encompassing nature of the marital relationship. Does that. If you ever feel deficient in love, if you're with a compatible marital partner or life partner, that creates a fulfillment of that deficiency. If you're ever deficient in friendship, the marital relationship can gift you that. If you had deficiencies with motherhood or fatherhood, the marital relationship can gift you that fulfillment, because you, in many cases, get to experience fatherhood and motherhood when you procreate with your children or adopt, or however you do that. They become your friend, they become your sister, they become your life partner. So that's a very unique and extraordinary relationship that really is unlike any other. So today I acknowledge all the mothers because it's Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, y'all. I'm so grateful for y'all women and all of y'all, the sacrifices that you make. And I'm not talking about that I was mother and father. No. We're going to stop that because that's a wound. Where if you were mother and you had to go extra hard, then I honor you on Mother's Day for going the extra mile as mama. But not for being mama and daddy, because you can only be mama and we can only be daddy. So I'm grateful for y'all being mama and mamas. And although I'm acknowledging all of the mothers out here, I acknowledge y'all, but I honor my wife, because in my world, you are the quintessential mother. Happy Mother's Day, my love. And always remember, my hair ain't nappy, and your hair ain't nappy either. Until next time. Thank you for listening to the My Hair Ain't Nappy podcast. Reach out to us on social media. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, and we're on Facebook. All the platforms at the My Hair Ain't Nappy podcast. We want to hear your own stories. Until next time, love you and love your hair.